Welcome to the Unit Economics Podcast. I'm Josh Stabinsky. On today's episode, I sit down with Francine Voit and Nico Buffo, co-founders of Pistakio. Pistakio makes pistachio spread built around real pistachio flavor. A pretty simple premise, but underneath lies a harder question to answer. How do you take an ingredient that's already loved in Italy and turn it into a pantry staple for American consumers who mostly know pistachios as a snack? Pistachios are expensive, sourcing is difficult, and the product has to justify a premium price while still feeling like something people can use often. In this conversation, we get into the early pivot from pistachio mayo to sweet spread, their early lessons from launching into retail, how demos shaped the product and packaging, why food service has become such an important discovery channel, and what changed when they moved from making the product themselves to working with a co-packer. I learned a lot during my conversation with Nico and Fran, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Nico and Fran, thank you both so much for taking the time to do this today. If you wouldn't mind just starting with the background on yourselves, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm Fran. I'm one of the co-founders of Pistakio, a pistachio spread company designed to reimagine pistachios as more than just a snack. And we met in college. I was an art school student. Nico was too. I was doing interior and graphic design, and we met in our sophomore year, but we started Pistakio in our senior year, and then that became our business after college.
It's great to be here. I would say the reason why we started Pistachio is because when we moved from Italy, Fran went to culinary school there, I'm from there, we realized that there was a huge gap in the market here in the US because there were so many nut products, so many like nut butters, almond butter, peanut butter, but there was nothing with pistachios. And the few pistachio products out there didn't taste like pistachios. They had a very artificial flavor, very like bright green colors, and these didn't resonate with what pistachio actually tastes like. So we had that big gap in the market and we wanted to fill it in.
For listeners who might not be aware, can you just describe what the sort of pistachio scene looks like in Italy and like how rabid people are about pistachios abroad? Because it's a very different cultural phenomenon, I think.
It's very different. And that was kind of like unique to me. I remember when I moved here not seeing anything with pistachios. But for us back home, pistachios are more of like a pantry staple, like more of an ingredient that you see in a lot of different like application, like culinary application, from like sweet to savory, especially in sweet. Like we have like a lot of croissants that are filled with pistachio cream. What you see here, like for Nutella, for example, back home we have both Nutella and pistachio creams. We also see in like savory application with like pestos and like, it's an ingredient that people use a lot. And I kind of think about it the way that peanut butter is used here. Back home, pistachio is one of those flavors because back home we don't really have any peanut butters. So we have Nutella, which is obviously the biggest one. But then right after, I would say pistachio creams are probably the most popular after hazelnut creams.
So walk me through the months and weeks leading up to actually deciding, okay, we're going to start a brand formally. What was going on? What did that look like?
I think we didn't have any idea that we were starting a brand. Like there was maybe a couple of weeks before we had our launch day that we were like, oh, this is real. But when we were filing to become a business, we were in college and we were just trying to go to the farmers markets and like discover if people were actually interested in what we were making. But we never said we're going to quit our job or we're not going to find a job and do this full time. We kind of just thought this could be something we could do on the side. We meshed together both of our skill sets and the things that we'd love to do and our passion. But I guess we didn't see it as something that actually had legs that could turn into a business and provide us a job too, especially coming out of college. But in some ways, we thought that would be the most ideal case scenario. Our dream scenario was to have Pistakio be our job. And I think once we moved to Portland and we decided to go full time in it, probably those 2 weeks before we launched, we had done the most that we'd ever done to really launch the business, because we went from having a pistachio mayo, which is what we were in college, so we were serving to our customers at farmers markets and things like that, to pivoting in less than 2 weeks because we had a pitch to our first retailer and we couldn't make the pistachio mayo pretty much. So we had to completely pivot and do the sweet pistachio spread that we have today. It was a little bit different. But in those 2 weeks, we did everything from like filing for the trademark, getting our brand, making a new logo, making the packaging, getting jars in, and like actually making the formula for the product too. And in 2 weeks, we did all of that. So I feel like it was chaos, but also I feel like if we hadn't moved that quickly, we maybe wouldn't have even done it.
That sounds incredibly chaotic. I'm not going to ask you what those 2 weeks sort of looked like because you just described it, but I am really interested to talk about this point in time. When you initially were talking to this specific retailer, I guess, like, what were those conversations like? Did you start out by telling them we're going to launch with mayo and now all of a sudden we're pivoting? Like, what did that back and forth look like during that 2-week period?
That was actually before we have talked to the retailer, because once we moved to Portland to launch Pistakio or try to launch Pistakio, we had no clue how to start a food business. It was just like, a concept, and the branding was fully done. The marketing was fully done because that was part of like our capstone project in college, but we didn't have a product that was ready to be sold in stores. So we took a class that was called Get Your Recipe to Market. It was a 10-week course in which they taught you everything from making the product in a commercial kitchen, getting all the licenses that you needed. And the final kind of like assignment was a pitch to the retailer. So we pretty much were working for 10 weeks to build the business so that we could pitch the retailer. And we got to about week 8, then we were still trying to figure out how the mayo was going to work. And week 8, the guest speaker was a food scientist that came into the show, and she was like, guys, the mayo sounds delicious, but either you find a co-packer that can make probably like, 50 to 100,000 units of this product, or you have to buy a $200,000 machine to make it happen. And at that point, we're like, okay, this might not work for us. So how can we pivot? And in college, once we did our market test, we also had a sweet spread that people loved. That kind of came back to mind. And we're like, we have this sweet spread. It's easy to make. It's shelf stable. We should launch with this one. And, as we grow, maybe we'll introduce the mayo at a second time. So it was a complete new pivot, but I'm glad we switched, because once we got to talk to the store and we got to pitch them at the week 10 mark, the sweet spread was a product that was ready to go, had already a kind of like an anchor to what's already out there in the market, because we could compare it to like a Nutella, we could compare it to peanut butter. So it wasn't as hard to describe to a retail buyer as the pistachio mayo would have been.
What was their response during the pitch or after the pitch?
They loved it.
They loved
They
it.
loved
Yeah.
that. We had done our research. That summer, we had been to Sicily, and we went there to really understand how to work with pistachios and how to get the best flavor out of them. And we were really knowledgeable in our little niche of pistachios. So I think they really loved the fact that, we were like a local business that we're just starting out, but that at the same time, we had a picture on how we wanted to grow the business. So we weren't just there, with like a product and nothing else. We had built, already a community. We had built a brand around it, and we already had something that, looked promising to them too. So I think that we did a good job kind of pretending that we knew what we were doing in a way, and really giving them like a sort of like assurance that we were not just going to like put a product out there and then forget about it, but we were going to follow through and put marketing behind it and really try to get our velocities up and for the product to get off the shelf as fast as it was going on the shelf.
They did take us in pretty much 3 months later. So at their next rotation, they took in Pistakio, and we've been there now for about 2 years, I would say, which is it's pretty unheard of for like smaller local brands of our size that go into their stores at that age. Like if you're in Portland and you're going into those smaller stores, a lot of times they leave you with like the local brands, but then most of them they leave. And I think something that we did really well was we started demoing our product a ton. They were able to try it in so many different ways. Their staff loves it so much. So I think we did a really good job at making sure that it not only went on the shelf, but without knowing it, we wanted to sell it off the shelf, and we didn't know that's what it took to actually keep us there. So we did a good job at keeping us on the shelf.
And we should probably name the retailer.
Yeah, it's New Seasons Market.
Yeah. So very, very early success. What, I guess, are the immediate next steps, though? Do you feel like, okay, it's time to figure out how the retail motion works? Do you consider D2C at this point in tandem? Like, how are you thinking about actually distributing the product from, let's call it, day one?
We were doing D2C at the same time, so I'll add that, but we knew that this would be our first retailer, and we wanted to make sure that we would do it right. So instead of just launching with them, and we didn't know anything about retail at the time too, so we kind of used them as like our guinea pig, the same as they did for us. So we learned so much about retail through them. And the nice thing was that because we were a local new brand, they were a lot nicer to us. So they gave us like all the free demos. They let us like come in with our own product and give it away to staff. So things like that, where we were able to really learn a lot about retail and then ask questions too that would help us and guide us for future retail partnerships that we're working on now.
What were some early learnings that were pivotal around retail or surprises in the early days?
Everything was a learning. I feel like we got into new seasons and had no clue about how retail works. So we learn, how a distributor works. We learn how to do promotion. We didn't even know promotions were a thing. So they were super patient with us. They taught us how to do a promo calendar, how to like really, create promotion, how to base the promotion off of like, should we do 10%? Should we do 15%? What kind of makes sense for like our category? And then I think they also let us like play around with like different things. So it was an amazing testing ground for us. We got to also really, while we were doing demos, we got to really understand our customer and understand who our product was for, what attributes were resonating the most. So I feel like we got a lot of learnings also on that, which kind of led us 3 months after launch with new seasons to completely change our packaging, change a little bit of the formula, because the fact that we got out there for 3 months and we really got to understand what people wanted in our product informed kind of what came after. And 3 months after we launched with them, we decided to switch to a plastic bottle. We changed the size, we changed a couple of ingredients, and we really create kind of like an evolution of the product that we wouldn't have been able to create if we didn't have all the feedback that we got through, countless of demos.
Yeah, and I guess I was going to ask, how are you getting the data? Was it just through demos?
Yeah, primarily. We did some surveys too on the D2C side, but for in-person demos, I think it was just so easy to ask somebody a question and say, "Hey, if this was organic cane sugar instead of the powdered sugar, or if this was like a smoother texture, would you enjoy it more?" I think a lot of people gave us so much valuable insight on the spot that we don't have to pay for per se.
Makes sense. Where were you sourcing from in the earliest days? Or I guess I should say, where were you sourcing from at this point? And how have your sourcing practices evolved over time, if at all?
Right now, we source from California. We use 100% California pistachios. When we started out, the first shipment came from Sicily. I remember we ordered like 3 tabs that arrived completely destroyed to our doorstep after like months. But yeah, in the summer before moving to Portland, right after college, we went to Sicily because we wanted to start working with Sicilian pistachios because of like, being from Italy and all the heritage. But something that we quickly learned about how the pistachio world works is that a lot of pistachios that come from Sicily are not actually Sicilian pistachios. Sicily grows pistachios in a very tiny island and in a very tiny volcano on that island. So a lot of the pistachios that you see as part of Italy, they're actually 0.0001% of those Sicilian pistachios mixed with a bunch of like Greek, Spanish, Turkish, so lower quality pistachios. And buying 100% Sicilian pistachios cost over $100 a pound, which wouldn't make it feasible for a pistachio spreader for someone to buy on the shelf. So we did a lot of like test comparison. We tried the blend and then we tried the blend compared to, 100% California pistachios. And the flavor of the 100% California pistachios was coming out a lot nicer. And so that we decided to start sourcing locally or like fairly locally in California. I think the biggest reason is that once you have like a single variety product, you can really bring out the full flavor of it. But once you start mixing different varieties, you kind of like water it down and it loses that particular flavor. So we decided to look over here down to California and we found some amazing partners that we're very excited to work with.
So the price of pistachios has skyrocketed, if I understand that correctly. How are you making this work? Because my understanding is also that you haven't raised your prices at all.
It's been rough. I think we want to be a product that is a premium product, but at the same time approachable. So we didn't want to raise our prices beyond a certain threshold because of that approachability. We want to make it feel like it's something that people can afford to eat multiple times a day throughout the day and not just for special occasions. With that being said, the way they were looking at COGS and the way they were looking at, keeping the product in stock, we decided to work with certain processors that can guarantee us supply instead of going to some that will make the price cheaper, but then not have the same supply available. And for us, we rather lose a little bit of margin right now, but make sure that we have pistachios throughout the whole year instead of maybe buying, the cheapest pistachios possible, but then running out of supply by, July and having to be out of stock until October. So right now we're trying to partner up with farmers and processors that really believe in our vision and that really believe in what we're doing and that are available to, be a supplier that can be there for us, even if the pricing is not the best pricing possible right now. It's like like a mutual relationship in which we are okay with paying a little bit of premium if they are okay with supplying us in the long term.
So, yeah, so you're off the ground. I think it sounds like things were going fairly well early on. How were you thinking about marketing and I guess demand generation in the earliest days? How are you thinking about trying to get this product in front of as many people as possible early on? And what did you try that maybe worked and didn't work?
Well, because we started in college, it was a capstone project for a social media class, and we didn't have a product when we started the class, really. So when Nico's professor told him that he had to start posting, we were like, okay, we don't have a product. Let's just build a cult following around pistachios, around the nut itself. And then from there, we'll launch them a product and we'll give them something that they can actually buy. So that's how it started. We didn't want to post because we were in a dorm room and we had horrible lighting and we didn't want to create recipes around pistachios, but we did it anyway. And I think it was the best thing we ever did because we started just bringing people along our journey. So in the beginning, it was a little bit more about like the pistachios themselves, and then it was about Nico and I and how we were trying to launch this business around pistachios, and it gave people some sort of like idol to like look after. And I feel like we built this brand through the community that we had. We started asking people like what kind of packaging they wanted to see, what kind of like jars we should get, what kind of costs it should be. And I think like a lot of people were really helpful in that whole process of building the brand. And at the same time, it was like free for us to get that kind of insight around the product, and we got it straight from the consumer. So I think it was super helpful for us to have that community from the very beginning. And then when we launched, we started doing some influencer seeding, and that helped us a ton because I think the moment people saw the pistachio and they actually tried it, they loved it. And then they started to post about it organically. And then the Dubai chocolate trend happened. And then they had more of a reason to post about it organically because there was always a new sort of trend going around. So if it was like the Dubai chocolate strawberry, then a huge influencer that already had Pistakio because we sent it to her would just make something with us. I think that helped build the brand a little bit too and give us some credibility and also make people feel like we were everywhere, even when we were just 6 months old.
My understanding is also that you had worked with an agency to try and, I guess, boost sales on the TikTok shop. Is that right? Or to try to boost visibility on TikTok? And that didn't really work
Yeah.
well. Is that right? So walk me through
Yes.
what that
Yeah.
looked like and I guess, what broke down, what didn't work about it.
Yeah, definitely. We launched on TikTok, what we wanted to launch on TikTok right before the holidays last year because we heard it was a great channel. We've seen like a couple of brands similar to us have like a lot of success on it, especially in the nut butter space. We heard, I think actually we met somebody at Fancy Food Show in June, and he was on the TikTok shop side and he was working directly with TikTok, helping brands. And he actually brought Pistakio into his incubator, and so we chatted with him for a bit, and then we got onto the incubator, and there was probably like 10 or so brands that were working alongside of him and other affiliates and the team that they had. But then all of a sudden, TikTok just had this massive layoff. And while we were working with him, he got laid off and we didn't hear anything. And then we lost our everything that we had worked on so far with TikTok, even though we hadn't really launched yet or done anything big yet. We still were in that process. So then in like a couple of months, we still hadn't heard anything. We didn't have a partner for TikTok, and we found a different agency and we started working with them because we wanted to see if we could boost it over the holidays. But a lot of their posts were very different than what we were doing on TikTok organically and what we would do on Instagram because our main social channel is Instagram. It's where we've built our community, and TikTok was a little bit more of an algorithm-based platform, so we didn't have as much of a presence on there, and we wanted to start building that presence. So we worked with this company, but then they started posting these very salesy videos about Pistakio that just were not performing at all. And at first we thought, like, let's give it a chance, let's see what happens. But it ended up being $20,000 down the drain because we just kept paying them saying, let's give it another shot. And nothing changed. So we found out from a couple of brand friends that have been doing really well on TikTok, one of them being Love, the salad dressing company, and then another one being Fishwife. And we reached out to both of them and they gave us the same agency that they were using. And they both had just gone viral. So we really saw the success that they were having. And we reached out to this agency. His name is JT Sarafa. And we started working with them probably less than maybe a month and a half ago. And within the month of working together, our videos were going viral with him. So there was a ton of potential that we knew had already been untapped, but he was able to really make Pistakio go viral on TikTok and actually generate sales for us that we weren't seeing before.
I'm interested to hear if there's a sort of concrete takeaway for you in all of that. Is it that it's worth pivoting earlier on if you're not seeing success on TikTok, or is that not the right takeaway?
I don't think that's the right takeaway. I think it's so part of it was that the videos that they were making in the beginning, the first agency, they were solely ads, not organic. And something that we heard from JT later on was that you need to build a organic virality first before you start going to ads. Because if you see that these organic videos are performing, then you can boost them even more. But if there's videos that are not performing and you're putting ads on them, you're wasting your dollars. And we started seeing all of these organic videos go viral on TikTok with JT. And I think part of those videos, part of the reason is that he also cracked the code into the formula for these videos. So creating videos about what our story is, who Pistakio is, and not just a random affiliate that says, this is so delicious, try this, buy this. And I think like those become very salesy versus people didn't feel like they were watching ad because they weren't when they were listening to our brand story, our company ethos, how we started. And it was also pretty relatable. It was well cut, well edited, and it felt like something that we would make. It didn't feel like an ad or something overly salesy.
Got it. Makes sense. I'm interested to talk about the role that partnerships has played for you. And I'm particularly interested to focus on, I guess, at what point you thought it would be worth exploring, the idea of entering a partnership with someone or a collaboration with someone. And I ask that question because I think it's fascinating, like how many channels you need to sort of weigh along the journey.
Our whole thought process behind doing a collaboration was we're a tiny brand and our product is delicious. If a restaurant or an ice cream shop or a coffee shop wants to take a bet on us and put our product on their menu, that way people can actually try our product risk free and they're going to love it because it's a delicious product and most people do love it when they try it. But maybe it's a little bit of a risk for the restaurant as a very new company, but as soon as people try it, they love it and they'll start selling more. And then our brand will also get eyes from the exposure that we'll have with this other company. So that's how we started in the beginning. And I think that's still what we're doing today. We're trying to get as many coffee shops, ice cream shops, acai bowl places, especially now that it's become a little bit more of a trend. Pistachio on menus is huge and it's doing really well in a lot of places. So we don't even have to reach out to as many people as we used to, but we put up our food service tubs on Faire on our wholesale platform. And it basically sells itself because people see pistachio on the menu and they try it immediately. And then once they hear that it's pistachio, they know where they can buy it. And maybe that restaurant or that store also has the retail jars on their shelf. And then they can make more profit from that too, because people just love the product as soon as they try it. And then they'll also buy it at that store.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the food service aspect of your story and your strategy is really interesting. What was the first example in that regard?
I think it was Nico's Ice Cream. There's a ice cream shop in Portland, Oregon, that was doing like a fruit soft serve. It was like Willamette Valley fruit that was fresh and frozen, and they would put it inside of this vanilla like soft serve. So it was like this beautiful New Zealand style swirly ice cream. And we just thought this is a perfect flavor combination because fruits and pistachio go very, very well together. Ice cream and pistachio goes well together. And the colors are also beautiful. So if we did like a strawberry and a pistachio drizzle on their soft serve, and it did so well that they decided to do like a limited edition pint also over the summer later that year. And that was our very first like ice cream collaboration. And we saw so much success from that that we decided to keep going and finding more places like that.
So walk me through what it looked like to actually get in the door there. Did you need to give the product away for free? Like, what was that conversation like in convincing somebody like, hey, we're a brand new brand, take a chance on us? Like, what did that actually look like mechanically? And then, naively, like, I don't know what the actual finances look like around a partnership like that. Is that just like a hit you're taking? Like, are you taking a cut of the sales of the ice cream? Like, how does that actually work in practice?
No, typically we would sell them the food service tubs. I don't remember what we did in this case, if we gave them a couple of jars for free, because I don't think it was too much. We didn't have tubs at the time, so we might have just stocked them a case, and if they liked it, they could buy more, especially if it does well and they see it's kind of risk-free for them if we give them 6 cases or 1 case of product, which is 6 jars, and then if it does well, or if it sells within their standard timeline, then maybe they can buy some more and they can continue the collaboration. But I think that's what we did. And now Nico is actually from Nico's Ice Cream, is one of our friends too. So we did that collaboration in the very beginning before we had even launched Pistakio. I think it was in November when we reached out, and he took a huge chance on us because we were a brand new, not even launched brand, and they were pretty established in Portland.
Were you able to see any sort of effect from the partnership show up in your sales in the aftermath? I imagine that's sort of a difficult thing to track, but like, what kind of halo effect did you then see as a result? I'm guessing there's some sort of effect on social media, but like, I'm just curious to see like if you can quantify what the effect of the partnership was.
I don't think we can quantify to the number, but we can definitely quantify. An example that I can bring about this, I was doing a demo last year at a New Season store, which is right next a acai shop that we were doing a special with. And while I was demoing, I had at least like 8 or 9 people coming to the table and be like, "Oh, pistachio, I'll just try it in the acai store." And so they already knew about it. So I feel like while it's hard to like quantify the exact number and see what the ROI is on those partnership, I think they still help like creating that halo effect. And I think we also improved since the beginning. I feel like when we started doing it, we didn't really have our roadmap. We didn't really know what was the best way to capitalize on these partnerships. And now I think we're learning more and more every time we do one. For example, we just launched the second edition of the cafe tour this year. And something that we didn't do last year that we decided to do this year was to gift every coffee shop that was a partner a little acrylic sign to put in front of the drink to say, hey, this is made with pistachio. This is where you can find pistachio, so that people see the brand, they see, the name pistachio, they kind of remember it. And in marketing, we always say that someone needs to see something 7 times before they make a purchase. So food service for us is kind of a way to really hit all those touch points. And we're really trying to develop a program in which we can be at your local ice cream shop, we can be at your local coffee shop, we can be at your local Shopee shop, and then at your local, maybe one day, Whole Foods. So really trying to get as many touch points as possible so that people can, see the brand, and they can also try it risk-free in a lot of different ways. And something that is very special to our product compared to the traditional pistachio creams that are from Italy is that we designed it for it to be used in a lot of different applications. So not just as a spread. So which is great because once people buy and once they start using it, they use it just way more frequent and the product runs out faster. But at the same time, there's the problem of like, how do we educate people on all the things that they can do? And social definitely plays a big part of it. We post weekly recipes. We have a newsletter in which we send out recipes as well. But I think there's also something special with being at a coffee shop so that people can try in a latte and then be like, oh yeah, I have lattes every morning. Now I can make my pistachio latte that's at home. Or if they go find it at their local ice cream shop, then they know they can put it as a drizzle on their vanilla ice cream at night. So with all this food service partnership, we're definitely trying to sell product, definitely try to get eyeballs on pistachio, but also really trying to get people to see how pistachio can be used and give them ideas on how they can use it, more of it.
It feels like a fairly high touch channel. So I'm interested also to hear about how you think about scaling the program in a way where it's not taking up all of your time.
Yeah, we just we are starting a program that it's called the Pistachio Pushers, and we are thinking of hiring a field marketing manager per market that we're in, and their role will be to demo Pistakio in store, but also to go out and find all these food service partnership, all these like local coffee shops, local ice cream shops. It's still something that we're building. So as we were saying before, we're building things as we go, but so far it's been going pretty well, and we're excited to see how that can scale in different cities across the US as we grow more distribution.
Yeah, I think it's just like a very cool and very unique part of like what you're doing in your story. So I could probably spend the next 30 or so minutes talking about this, but we should probably talk about other things as well. As you think about collaborations with other brands on actual products and the role that that plays, I'm interested to hear about how you view collaborations in that sense versus spending the time invested in actual SKU expansion on your end and how you weigh that trade-off.
I think that for a brand like ours in the beginning, we had all of these ideas of all these SKUs. We wanted to be a pistachio brand that was doing a spread, was doing a mayo, was doing a pesto, was doing, all these different things. That was very naive of us when we were in college. As soon as we entered grocery stores, we realized that it's very hard for a brand to be in a million different categories, because that means a lot of different SKUs, a lot of different like operational complexity, a lot of co-packers, a lot of, category reviews with different buyers. So we kind of decided to nail down our core SKU of products. So right now we have our dual creamy and crunchy, and we don't see ourselves growing into SKUs, into different SKUs. We don't see ourselves becoming like a flavor brand, or like a brand that makes like a lemon pistachio spread, or like a cardamom pistachio spread, just because we want people to taste real pistachio flavor, and we think that adding a bunch of stuff will take away from the pistachios. So the way they were seeing collabs is a way for us to show people how much more you can do with pistachios. But for us to develop a full SKU from scratch, it would take a lot of R&D, a lot of sourcing, a lot of, like sales, like a sales team to be selling to all these different channels. And that's kind of when we started thinking about, okay, how can we partner up with someone that feels aligned, so that the partnership feels like something that, it makes sense. I feel like sometimes you see a lot of partnership that are a very stretch, and we don't want to really partner up with someone just for the sake of partner up. We are trying to do partnership that are true to our brand and true to like the brand that we partnered up with. And a great example is the Day Bark that we just launched with Day Better. That was a SKU that our customers honestly have been asking for. We did one of our first Instagram posts we did was with Day Better, and people kept saying it would be so good if we did something together. And then throughout the past year, we started seeing people using Pistakio in dates as a filler for date. And, when you start seeing one person tagging in a story, it's one thing. But when you start seeing 3 people per week tagging in a story eating pistachio with dates, then it kind of makes you think that there's something special in there. And that's when we decided to reach out to the Better, and we talked about it. And, the SKU came out being very, very delicious. And our customer loved it because they were already using pistachio in dates. So it was, something that they've already loved, and that felt very natural to us.
I agree. I also think it's kind of like partnering with brands that are already doing something really well. Like we want to be a brand that is doing one thing, but doing it really, really well. And someone like Date Better that is doing dates, but doing them really, really well. We can partner up and not have to take a risk by creating a whole new product, because they already have the customer base for people that are buying these dates. They already have all the shops that are carrying their products. So all we need to do is put in our ingredients into their product and like sell to both of our customers and really expand both of our customer bases. So I think that's why it was easy for us to figure this out, because it wasn't a huge risk for either of us.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You recently started working with a co-packer for the first time, and it was a very condensed process in order to make that happen. So I'm really interested to hear about why now is the right time to do that. Like what was going on behind the scenes that made it necessary to do that, and yeah, what the process looked like to get up and running with them.
I think it was something that had a very fast turnaround, but it's something that we've been thinking about for quite a long time. We just haven't found the right partner until very recently. We knew that it was very hard to scale production the way that we were doing it. And over the past year and a half, we've been outgrowing space after space. We were in a little commercial kitchen. We all grew it very quickly. We moved to a new one. Then we found another place to sublease. And it was kind of very fast the way we were growing out of spaces. And we hit our point in which if we really wanted to scale, we either had to create our own facility or trying to find a co-packer that, wanted to take a bet on us. And over the past 7 months in which we subleased a space from someone, we kind of gave ourselves the goal to outgrow that space in 7 months and at the same time buying ourselves the time to really find the right partner. So over the past 7 months, we've been on the lookout, really having a lot of conversations with different co-packers, trying to identify who would be the perfect partner for us to scale. And we didn't want just go to the first one. We wanted to, have a cushion knowing that we had our own space, that we could continue making the product while we were searching for the perfect partner, because we didn't want to have to jump, to the first one. And we wanted to make sure that the person that will start making our product is someone that we trust and that we can really see ourselves growing with.
Yeah, I feel like it happened suddenly, but it's been something that we've been working on for so long that it also feels like a giant relief, because it's been at least 2 years where we thought we were going to go into our first co-packer in November of 24, I think it was. And all of a sudden they went bankrupt, and we had already sent them ingredients. We already were prepared to start moving there. And then we had to find our whole new space to start producing it ourselves again, which was kind of a headache. So after we found this partner, we decided to go all in, but it also had been so long, and we told ourselves, like, let's not rely everything on this partner because of what happened last time. And so we didn't talk about it. We just tried not to make a big thing out of it, just in case something fell through again. And thankfully it didn't. So that's why it felt so sudden, because from one week to another, we actually did move and we didn't just have to be flaked on again.
How many doors are you currently in?
About 450.
And do you have a goal for the number of doors you want to be in by the end of the year?
By the end of the year, we'd love to grow more into California. Right now, our biggest focus was to grow up the velocities in the Pacific Northwest to really try to create a model that is replicable in other areas of the country. And we found a very successful model here in Portland that we are replicating right now in Seattle. And once Seattle is up and running, which should be very soon, we are seeing ourselves growing down to California. And at the same time, we're continuing expanding our independent stores. So we'll probably end up the year at around 600 locations. And then next year is when we really want to grow national and trying to expand more nationwide. So trying to find a retail partner that has distribution across the country for us to really bring pistachios closer to where our customers live.
I think it's less of like a number goal that we have, or at least what we've talked about when we were planning the year, and more of like dream retailers goal and the ones that we want to expand into, and regional areas. So we do want to expand as much as possible. And we already did very recently in Seattle, and we got into all of the retailers around there. And now we want to focus a little bit more in California too, because it's close to where we are, it's close to where pistachios are. And I think it would just make the most sense for us to really take over the West Coast first and then start looking at the rest of the country. But definitely some retailer goals first, and then we'll just see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I asked because I was going to ask if the number was 650, let's say, well, what is it actually going to take to get into an additional 200 doors? I'm just interested in what breaks down on the distribution side. But it sounds like if you're thoughtful about targeting geo to geo, that expansion into California would fit easily within your current distribution framework. Is that right?
Definitely. It's a mix of the two, targeting the right customers, the right retailers, and also all our independent business that grows by itself month over month. We're doing all our wholesale into independent stores through Fair, which is an amazing platform for small emerging brands. And if you're doing well, the algorithm shows you to even more stores. So the more stores you are, the more stores you're opening. So we're seeing ourselves growing to more and more independent stores month after month. So it's a mix of the two, the continued growth that we're seeing with independents and also the retailers that we are targeting right now for our 2026 expansion.
Is there any surprising data on the D2C side around who is buying the product and where they're located?
Not really. I think it is coastal cities. It's New York, California, Florida, Oregon obviously is doing well, and Washington, but we don't It's a product that you don't really see in the Midwest. Like, I don't think a lot of people know about it there yet, or it hasn't grown as much, and it is a little bit more expensive. And we are based in the more coastal areas, and that's where our stores are. Something that is surprising, though, I think, was when we started, we felt like our product would be targeted to the people that are closest to us, which is more Gen Z and people in college. But then when we were in college, we realized that the people shopping us at farmers markets were not the college students because they could not afford our jars and our product. And to this day still it's not the younger generation, that like 15 to 20-year-olds, but it's more like the 30 to 50-year-olds, and a lot of actually older people that love our product, and a lot of their kids that love our product too, and people that are maybe like a little bit more health conscious too, that they like their sweet treats, but they are not going to go and get a Nutella or something super unhealthy for them. So I think we were surprised to see like a little bit of that older generation actually.
I feel like also something very surprising in a positive way is how many people when we start with a jar, then they move to 6 jars on their second orders, and then on their third order they buy a tub, which means that we really like they're really going through it. And we have a few customers that buy like duos of tubs at the time, so they have like 2 gallons of pistachio in their pantry. I feel like it's super fascinating. We would never expected that, but it's super gratifying to see how many people are enjoying the product and how many, I feel like something that it's been very cool to see is how many people are getting creative with it too. I think in the beginning when Fran and I developed the product, we really wanted to be something special that people could use across a multiple daily occasions, but we never have thought it in a million years that people would take it 3 notch further and really like, get creative with it. And just seeing people tagging us in the craziest recipes and just seeing people like, making it a tool for them to really like get creative is something that it's super special, and we're really like grateful for it.
I think when you have people ordering multiple tubs of your product, you know that you're doing something right. I'm curious to hear how you're thinking about establishing staying power. And what I mean by that is there's a chance that there's a fad right now around pistachios and it's just sort of trend. And 2 to 3 years out, that interest dies down. And I'm wondering how you're thinking about creating something that has true staying power, that isn't just a fad that people want to purchase year over year in perpetuity.
I think that's the reason why we decided to make pistachio products and now Dubai chocolate products. And when we started way before the Dubai chocolate craze. We started because we saw that there was a big gap in the market and there was nothing that was, you know, delivering pistachio flavor out there. And at the same time, there were so many people that were eating pistachios, like Wonderful had a huge market. People love pistachios in this country, but there wasn't nothing that really tasted like pistachios. And I think the fact that we decided to create pistachio products, even and stick with pistachio products even after the whole Dubai chocolate craze, is because we feel like the Dubai chocolate was just a trend or like, something that accelerated the way people see pistachio and accelerated the popularity of pistachios. But pistachios have been on the rise for the past like 30 years, and year over year the market has been growing. So definitely Dubai chocolate accelerated it, but we don't see pistachio as a flavor just being a fad, and we see it staying here for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the Dubai chocolate thing, and that's the reason that we launched a crunchy spread and not a Dubai chocolate spread, because we didn't want it to just be another trend. We want it to be a staple, just like crunchy and creamy peanut butter are out there. You can use pistachios in a creamy or crunchy way. And I think also in Italy, like you have these pistachio products that are evergreen and people have them year round and they put them on all these different desserts. And I think we see also the pistachio as an ingredient or on a menu as something that is going to stay. It's never really going to go anywhere. Maybe it'll be seasonal the way Starbucks brings their pistachio latte in or the way ice cream shops have it. But even the ones that are out there now, I think people are starting to understand that they most of the time have like some artificial flavor or they just don't taste like pistachios at all. And if we create a product that shows people what pistachios really, really taste like, then they're going to want to continue buying our products the same way they go to an ice cream shop and get a pistachio gelato even before the Dubai chocolate trend exploded. We want them to see the real flavor of pistachios and be able to do that for themselves at home.
So, as new entrants hit the market and you see the competitive landscape evolve and expand, how are you thinking about defensibility?
The brand. and the quality of our product and the fact that we source pistachios locally and we have a single farm that we use. And I think it's like the flavor of our product too, because we still see these different brands out there that have launched recently that are still using neon colors and are still tasting like there's chemicals inside. And even the ones that have just launched in Costco too, or that are supposed to be the Dubai chocolate ones, a lot of people try them and they're disappointed. And I think that happens so many times with pistachio flavored things because you expect the taste of a pistachio and then you don't get it. And by giving them something that is true quality, that is something that I think we're doing really well and people value and they trust our brand because of the fact that we're giving them something that is true.
What's a dream retailer for you and why? More importantly, why are they a dream retailer?
It's a good question. I think Costco would be a dream retailer for me because I kind of grew up with it and I feel like it is one of those staples for like family, household, just American pantry staples and things that you would find and discover and that are totally new and that you would never think I'm going to buy a bucket of pistachio cream at Costco and come back with it. It's in your pantry. And I also just think that if we get to these places in the US, then we've kind of made it because people in the Midwest are buying pistachio. People in the Midwest know about pistachios as an ingredient or people all over the US. So I feel like that would be just one that would be really cool if we could eventually get into.
I totally agree on definitely like a Target would be amazing for us because our mission since the beginning has been to bring real pistachio flavor to the US. And I think that, you know, Whole Foods would be an amazing partner to grow with those sprouts, would be an amazing partner for us to grow, in the short term to really like, go national with. But I think 10 years from now where we see pistachio bean is, all over the US and as accessible as it can be. And we really want we really want pistachio to be a product that everyone can enjoy across the country from coast to coast.
I think something that's really interesting about the position you're in is that there's so much you can do. You've talked about the versatility aspect. There's so much you can do with pistachio. And so when you think about SKU expansion, if you're comfortable sharing, I'm interested in hearing about maybe what comes next that isn't a spread and how you're thinking about evolving the brand in that way. And if you're comfortable sharing what that is, why that particular item over any other thing you could have chosen to do.
I'll start with that. I think like when we first started Pistakio, this doesn't really answer your question, but we looked up to like Fatgens, for example, that just got acquired. We looked up to Graza that at the time only had 2 olive oils. And I think what we really thought they were doing so well was that they did one thing or, one category, but they were doing it really well and their products were really good and you could trust it. And to me, it's kind of like going to a restaurant that serves only like Italian food or serves a little bit of everything. And they have like American, Spanish, Italian, Greek. And you know that like the food isn't going to be as good because it's not like a sole thing. And I think that's what we saw for Pistakio. We thought we do one thing, but we do it really well. And it's the best thing you'll ever have. And now we want to expand into more collaborations. But again, like the collaboration is our way of showcasing pistachios in new ways with partners that already are able to make this pretty easily. And I think for us, like if we were to do something else, it would probably be a little bit further down the line.
Yeah, makes sense. What's something you've changed your mind about since starting Pistakio?
I think that money definitely helps scaling a business, but at the same time, it's not the only thing that matters. I feel like you hear a lot of people like in the headlines raising millions of millions and millions, and sometimes that feels like you've made it when you raise a big round. I think that definitely like helps accelerating and boosting a brand, but at the same time, I think that there's something special about how creative you can get when you have like little resources and how like resourceful you can be in the beginning. And I definitely think that you need to fundraise to continue growing the brand. But I think that something that I'm happy we did it the way we did it was starting bootstrapping. I think in the beginning a lot of people were like fundraise since the beginning, and we started very like small and scrappy our way, trying to figure out like everything step by step. And I think that really like pushed us to think creatively about like creating our own playbook instead of just following the playbook that was out there. So instead of opening Unify to go nationwide with Whole Foods, we decided to start with Fair and be in 400 independent stores across the country, which was kind of like our way to still be accessible and close to a lot of people while not having to launch with a major distributor from day one. So I think that when you have little, you have to think about different ways to do things. And I think that, more brands should start scrappier if they can.
Yeah, you learn how to make use of every dollar. I also think that great packaging in the beginning, I thought it just meant that you had a great product, and we wanted our packaging to be the first thing people see about us, and it would tell them that the product is delicious. But now I feel like there's so many products out there, and a lot of them have great packaging, but we need to be able to show people that our product actually tastes good, because a lot of times you see it and you think it equals that it tastes good, but it doesn't. So we're trying to show how delicious our product is in a bunch of different ways, whether it's like the food service, whether it's these collabs where we can get more people to just try it in some sort of way, and also make our packaging not just beautiful, but also tell you more of a story about really what the product is and what it stands for and how to use it, and the reason that, the pistachio spread is on the front of the packaging, and how people put it in their coffee and how people put it on ice cream, and the versatility that it has versus just being something cute that you grab in your independent store.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. I just released an episode today. That won't be the case when this episode gets released, but as of recording this episode, I just released it today with Tenley Fitzgerald, who created Yes Apples. And I think that for anybody interested in the topic of packaging as a means of consumer education, that is an excellent example. And I highly recommend checking that episode out.
And we just did a collab with them too.
That's right.
Small world.
Yeah, small world. I think we have time for one more question. Where do you see Pistakio 3 to 5 years from now?
Definitely nationwide, definitely accessible all over the country in a lot of different, regions and a lot of different stores. We see ourselves also being in a lot of different menus across the country with bigger food service partner. And we see ourselves continuing being at the forefront of this pistachio renaissance that it's happening. I think we're doing a good job getting people to try pistachio and getting people to try and experience what real pistachio flavor looks like. And we want that to continue being the case and to be amplified at a whole, all across the country.
I'm very excited to follow along. Thank you both so much for the time today. If you want to share with listeners where they can find Pistakio, please feel free to do so.
They can find Pistakio at pistachio.co, so without the M, or Pistakio on Instagram and TikTok.
Amazing. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, let's debrief. What stood out to me most in today's conversation is how much of Pistakio's business depends on making an unfamiliar use case feel obvious. The product itself is simple enough to understand once you taste it, but the behavior around it still has to be taught. People need to understand that pistachio spread can go into coffee, on ice cream, with fruit, in dates, on toast, or in recipes. That education shows up everywhere in the business. Retail demos, packaging, recipes, newsletters, cafe partnerships, ice cream collaborations, and even small details like putting branded signs next to drinks made with pistachio. I think the broader lesson here is that for a product like theirs, distribution and education are tied together. Getting onto a shelf matters, but getting people to know what to do with the product matters just as much. That's why food service becomes such an interesting channel. A cafe or ice cream shop gives customers a lower risk way to try the product in context. If and when that works, the jar on the shelf becomes a lot easier to understand. As Pistakio moves from a regional brand into more markets, that same challenge exists, it just gets bigger. But I left this conversation feeling confident that Fran and Nico understand and can handle that complexity. Because so much of their growth so far has come from staying close to the consumer and learning directly from how people use the product. And while that gets harder to do with scale, I think their decision to stay true to their existing product line for the time being is the right strategic choice and will serve them really well. Again, I learned so much during my conversation with Fran and Nico, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you haven't already, make sure to follow and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.